So Eugene has a job now. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to Tangled the series, episode 4. And yeah, like I said in the cold open, Eugene got a job last time. He was going to be a guard at first, but that didn't quite work out because literally everything was stacked against him. But he ended up, in the end, being allowed to teach new recruits on how to handle criminals. Just from experience and everything. But I still feel like he kind of got the short end of the stick in the episode because, like I said, everything was stacked against him. He had no way to, like, really succeed. It was kind of messed up if you think about it. But either way, he's, I think, going to be okay. The question is, now what? What kind of crazy misadventure are we going to get up to next? Because it's like it's taking a bit of time for this to get going. And I expected that. Like, I acknowledge this could be like one of those shows where it's like it starts off a little slow, starts off very episodic, and then ends up bringing in the story later. I came into this expecting that, but it definitely is pretty slow. The first episode that we did all the way back before was probably the best so far. Episodes 2 and 3 were just kind of meh, and the special was okay. But it's like it is definitely taking a little bit of time, and I understand why it wants to kind of like introduce us to how Rapunzel and Eugene are handling this new situation and their connections to different characters. It wants to introduce us to Cassandra and get us ready for what's to come. I understand that. But the slow episodic nature of these early episodes are sometimes hard to, sit through. Because it's like, even if even if certain things from them end up becoming important later on, it just feels like nothing is happening. You know? Like, I don't know how some of this stuff would be important later on, outside of the stuff that was in the special and the first episode. Like, episodes 2 and 3, how the hell is Monty gonna be important? Like, and I can kind of see how Eugene teaching the guards and everything, I can see how that could be important, but at the same time, it just, the way it's presented feels so fillery, for lack of a word. And I've heard such great things about this series that I'm definitely going to continue giving it a chance. I'm not like complaining about this, just like to bitch and moan about it, like not living up to expectations or anything. It's still early on. But I am waiting for something to happen, Because they really aren't even touching back on the main, like, plot at all yet. Like, they're not even really mentioning it. It was like, it was a notable part of the special in the first episode, but episodes 2 and 3 just, it's just, like, ignored completely. And again, that's counting 3 episodes in a special. That's not much to go on. I understand. But it's like, to just kind of not mention it at all feels a little weird. It just feels like it's become status quo. And it's like the crazy shit that was set up, I feel shouldn't be status quo. Mind you, I think part of the reason for that too is the fact that Rapunzel and Eugene are kind of like not being allowed to leave. The king is kind of forcing them to stay, you know, within the castle and the grounds and the town and everything. So that is kind of maybe part of the reason, but for them to not even like be discussing it, I don't know. Maybe it's just impatience on my end. I just really am very interested in the story. And this kind of side stuff just hasn't been that entertaining for me so far. Um it's just, I hope they at least start to make these side stories, because there's definitely going to be plenty more of them. I hope they at least start to make them more entertaining, more exciting, more fun, because there just hasn't been a lot of that yet. They've been very bland, honestly. And so I'm just hoping for, like, if we're going to still have them, which they are, I want them to make them more exciting, more fun. There just needs to be more to them. They feel so by the numbers right now. You know what I mean? It feels like the most basic ass plots possible with no soul to them. And that really feels like it kind of goes against Tangled. Because Tangled took a basic ass plot and made it unique and interesting. And again, the special in the first episode of this did well at continuing that. So hopefully this follows in that kind of footsteps, and these early episodes are just probably the weaker parts of this series by far. But we shall see. For the time being, we're just going to get into this episode and hope for the best. See what this one has in store for us. And hopefully it ends up being more entertaining than the previous couple. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. You know, there's been multiple occasions where I've recognized Danny Trejo's voice in things. I believe I recognized him pretty quickly in The Ghost of Milo McGee, for example. But it's like, I did not recognize his voice at all here. In fact, I thought it was Jim Cummings. If you don't know, Jim Cummings has done a lot of voices. He's a pretty big name. Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, various characters here and there. He sounded like Jim Cummings doing, like, you know, a raspy voice. Going back and listening to it after I finished the episode and everything, I can kind of tell it's Danny Trejo. Like, I can hear it a little more, but he is putting on more of a voice than I think I've heard him do. Like, he's deepening and making his voice very raspy and gruff. It has, like, almost that cadence, that flow of the way wow, my mind, Jim Cummings. I don't know why my mind blanked on that for a second there. I literally had just been saying his name. But it has, like, that cadence and flow of Jim Cummings' voice, though, when he speaks. Like, when he does his voice roles. Specifically, obviously, when he does more characters like this, rather than, like, Winnie the Pooh or something. I could kind of hear that in there. Like, imagine... This is just the thing that came to mind. Jim Cummings does part of the song vocals for Be Prepared in The Lion King. Like, the second half of the song, I believe, is Jim Cummings taking over for Scar's normal VA, because he, like, I think hurt his throat or something, and they needed to, like, finish it up. But you can kind of hear, like, that kind of voice of Jim Cummings in there. And it's just like, I really thought that was him in here. Like, I was actually pretty confident. Not like 100%. Like, if it ended up being someone else, I would have, like, probably been fine with it. But but the fact that it's Danny Trejo, like, has thrown me off so much. I just did not expect that. And again, even going back and listening to it again, it's like he is putting on much more voice than he normally does. Because, like, you hear him in Molly McGee, or you hear him doing voices and other stuff. And Big City Greens, for example. He was in Big City Greens, which I still need to continue that, by the way. But yeah, you hear him doing these voices, and most of the time he just sounds like himself. Like, you watch him in a live action movie or series as well, and it's like he sounds like that, just doing the voice acting instead. But here he's actually putting on more of a different voice, and it's like, that threw me off so much. But I obviously want to talk about more than just that here. So, in terms of these more episodic, non-story focused episodes that we've gotten, this is probably the best one. Comparative to episodes 2 and 3, basically. Not counting the special and episode 1, because those are story focused. But out of episodes 2 through 4 now, this is the best one. But it still felt very isolated. It doesn't feel like it really amounts to too much. Because Rapunzel and Cassandra's relationship didn't really change at all in it. It's pretty much the same at the end as it was at the beginning. There was just the little, issues in the middle there that they had to work out. I like that Rapunzel understood that she had been, like, unintentionally, mind you, but still ignoring Cassandra's feelings on this, not even, like, thinking that she might be upset about this all. And then you have the fact that Cassandra, was obviously being a little rude herself and was just taking this a little too far. But it's like she said at the same time, this is important to her. She gets respect and love from Rapunzel, but she's always wanted that from other sources as well. It's something that's important to her. She doesn't like being looked down on, which, I mean, mind you, I don't think much of anyone does, unless you're, like, into that kind of thing. But at the same time, it's like she seems like she needed validation. And that's not a bad thing. It's not bad to want validation from people. It feels good to get that. So, yeah, I don't blame her at all. The way she was, like, being mean to Rapunzel was not great, but yeah, that was made a point of. So, I do like how it ended. I do like how the apologies came out and how she basically let Rapunzel have the win, but then Rapunzel turned it back on her. And it's like, oh, you truly deserve to win this. I think it turned out pretty well. This is another episode, though, that feels like it's just there to build up the character, though we've kind of already had this characterization from Cassandra. It doesn't feel like anything new. Like, the idea that she's, a tough fighter who desires respect and admiration from others, it's like, we kind of knew that. That's not new information. It wasn't bad, though. Like I said, it was a good episode. It was definitely the best we've had so far outside of the story-driven ones. But I just feel like, yeah, it's another one that didn't feel like it amounted to much. And that's not to say that it won't. It might come back into play in the future. That's very possible, even probable, I would say. Because I feel like Cassandra's gonna definitely have a major role to play in where the story goes, considering, the opening shows the part from the special where she's trying to cut the crystals. Ooh, excuse me. I knew that was coming. I knew that was going to happen. So, anyway, back to what I was saying. Ugh. It shows that in the opening, and it doesn't seem like that's unintentional. It comes across as like she's definitely going to have a major role to play in that, and it seems like she's probably going to like have some struggles. Like if they're using that clip for any meaning other than just showcasing it, I feel like it's got to be important to showcase that she's going to face some struggles in the main story. Because I feel like they wouldn't have just used that clip otherwise. They had to have used it for a reason. It has to mean something for where her character arc is going to go. And that makes sense to me. I feel like Cassandra going through it um, is going to be a big thing. In fact, I could even see her and Rapunzel parting ways at some point, for lack of a better way to put it. I don't know if I necessarily believe she would become a bad guy or anything. I don't know if we'll have a heel turn for her. She definitely seems like the kind of character you would think could do that. Because she seems like she's kind of one bad day away from snapping and like turning on her. But at the same time, I don't necessarily have enough information to believe that's going to happen right now. Right now, all I can think that is probably going to happen is that she's going to maybe lose faith in Rapunzel. Maybe she's going to think Rapunzel is like not taking things too seriously and is getting frustrated with that, and maybe she leaves her side as her handmaiden and everything. That I could see. Maybe she goes and tries to solve this mystery on her own and ends up, getting in over her head. But she won't admit it because it's her. I could see stuff like that happening. And then we still haven't seen the kid from the first episode again yet. Again, they made it seem like he was going to be really important, but maybe not. Maybe he's just like a very minor character who just appears every now and again. That's maybe a little disappointing, but and I want to also talk about real quick their need to shoehorn in all three of these main characters every time. Rapunzel, Cassandra, and Eugene are always in these episodes, and it feels unnatural sometimes. For example, I don't think Eugene should have been in this episode. And I mean at all. Believe it or not, you can have an episode without all three of them in there. This episode should have been just Rapunzel and Cassandra. Eugene's B plot of him, like, continuously being moved around the stands because he's being too obnoxious and loud, and then having to try to get back in after he's kicked out. It's like, am I the only one who just felt like that was a waste of time? That they could have dedicated more to the Cassandra Rapunzel plot? Like, I understand that having the A plot and the B plot and injecting comedy like that in there is part of, animated series. Like, the animated shows do that. But it just felt so unnatural and tonally distant from everything else in this episode that it was distracting. And I really just don't feel like he had anything to offer to this episode. There was no reason for him to be in it. Other than just to have the main characters all be in it. You can have an episode that just focuses on two of them, or even just one of them, without the others being in there at all. And I really hope that they eventually start to do that, because it's something that a lot of shows just don't do, that a lot of shows mess up on. shoehorning these characters into episodes they have no business being in just hurts the overall feeling of the episode. Hell, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. That show got it for the issues it did have. That was one thing that series pretty much always understood. There were episodes where you'd only see one or two of the main six, and you wouldn't see any of the others pretty much the entire episode, except maybe sometimes in the background, because it was focused on those specific characters. The episode focused on them, gave it their plot, and the others had nothing to do with that, so they just weren't in the episode. And I think that was such a smart idea. It allowed certain episodes to develop and work the characters in a natural feeling way without shoehorning in characters who had no business being there. And some people would try to say, like, at the beginning, Twilight was kind of shoehorned into almost everything, and to a degree, she was. But they did fix that problem by season 2. So that problem was not in most of the series, to be fair. So yeah, it's just, I feel like they should do that here as well. Just have episodes that focus on some of the characters, but not all of them. That was my only real gripe with this episode, other than it just not feeling like it amounted to much. But I could say that about episodes 2 and 3 as well, so that's not a new issue. But we'll see how it all goes. Maybe a lot of this will connect in bigger ways than I expect. We'll see. But I would love to hear what you thought of this episode of Tangled the series. So let me know down in the comments below. And as always, no spoilers. Do not tell me what's going to happen. Do not tell me if any theories or thoughts I have are true or not. Do not tell me if things come back in the future. I want to remain spoiler free. I want to experience things as they happen. So, for the time being, thank you so much for tuning in. And for now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.